Welcome to episode 49 of the Practice Squad, a show where we talk about football, shoot the breeze, and make even the replacement refs cringe. I'm your host and fourth string quarterback, Jeremy, joined each and every week by my co-host and backup long snapper, Joseph. How's it going, man?
This was definitely the worst week of games of the week, and it just had to be our two teams, huh?
I know. Yeah. And that trickled down into our game of the week discussion too, but we'll get to that in a second. So we're live right here on YouTube every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. We've transitioned now from the NFL regular season to the NFL postseason, so we'll be giving you weekly coverage of that each Tuesday night at 7:30 p.m. Pacific until just after the Super Bowl when we do our final episode of the 2020/2021 season. If you want, you can call it the COVID season. This was season 3 of the Practice Squad. So if you like what you hear and want to support us, don't hesitate to like, share, and if you're feeling extra generous, subscribe. You can like, share, and subscribe even if you think you could run this show better than us. So this week we've got the very last 49ers and Dolphins games of the season to talk about, and one of them should have been the last and the other one shouldn't have been. A practice squad surprise to reveal, MVP to wonder at, commentators to make fun of, and of course, some wild playoff predictions to make.
So, hey man, I like that. You wrote that in there. What you said about one of them shouldn't have been the last, but it was.
I actually made that up on the spot, but it,
That's
from
a
the
good
heart,
one.
from the heart, the Dolphins. We should be talking about the Dolphins.
No, I know. Trust me. I have something to say about it once.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Well, we're actually going to talk about it now because the first game of the week is Dolphins at Bills, the 56-26 romp by the Bills. Since this was the nail in the coffin for you, I'll let you start with this one.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll say this. I'll jump the gun and say that most of the weeks, right, when we do our wreck face, we also do like a who got wrecked segment as well. I'll just do that portion here because who got wrecked was the Dolphins and their season and their playoff hopes. The Dolphins didn't just lose; they got obliterated. Their deficit of loss was greater than the points they scored. Just think about that. And it wasn't like it was 25-10, 56-26. And honestly, that actually sounds better because early in the fourth quarter, I think it was 43-13 or something. I mean, it was bad. It was very bad. Yeah, I'll say Tua GM came out today, read an article or skimmed through it, saying that they're going to go with him as the starter. I'm not okay with that. Like that's okay, but he needs practice. That's the thing. Is it's weird. This year we were almost so good. Our defense was legit. We have potential on offense. We have great draft picks. We're going to have 2 draft picks in the top 10 in the first and second round next year. Tell me that's not good.
It is good. I won't argue with that.
Actually, no, I take that back. I'm sorry. We'll have 1 top 7, and we'll have our own pick. So we'll probably have so we'll have 1 top 7 pick in each round, and then another top 20.
Thanks to the highway robbery you committed against the Texans.
Thank you, Texans, and I'm sure the Cardinals thank the Texans too for that Hopkins trade.
Oh yeah.
Man, the Texans, what a year. Anyways, so it's almost like the Dolphins clicked too well on other categories because Tua needs to. If Tua doesn't figure this out, I don't want to be in a position in 2 more years, not next year, but the following year, where we have another 9-7, 11-5 season, and we're unsure about Tua, but now we're doing better. Don't have the great draft picks anymore because they've been for these 2-3 years, and we have a lower draft pick for the following year because we did well next year. So I almost feel like we're in a worse situation because we did better this year. Like, so Tua needs to figure it out next year. We need to know by like week 6 of next year if Tua is the franchise quarterback. I'm not saying that he's not. Not saying he should get a chance. My concerns. So I see decent decision making. There's good accuracy. When he wants to, he has a decent arm. I remember telling people saying that he has a really good arm. I don't see it. I feel like I have to see him wind it up into a throw. He can sling it if he needs to. But I think, honestly, now maybe this is a little jab, a playful jab, but maybe he just got really excited that his former college team is playing in the national championship next week, and he just got back into his college days because he was just throwing the ball too soft, too many lobs. He looked like he might have been stuck in like the college.
Oh
thing.
yeah, dude,
Yeah,
I noticed that. I was going to talk to you about that. I was sending you a text. Like I felt like every pass was like a deep 3-pointer or something.
No,
it was
yeah,
weird.
No,
it was really weird.
But like doesn't I would not say he has a weak arm, but he does not have a strong arm in the NFL. His arm is sufficient, but sometimes he really needs to sling it. He has good accuracy, and good decision making, with a caveat. So the 2 weaknesses that I think he has. So the arm strength or uses it is a problem, and I think that he's a little timid. It's weird when he's on, he makes good decisions, but he's timid, and he was making throws where it's like, I think there's one play where it's like 3rd and 10, and they throw it for like a few yards. And I think that, and we've seen this, his yards per completion is very low. I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of the lowest of starters this year. It's like, can't do that. And it's not like he's doing the dink and dunks like Brady used to do and Drew Brees does. It's just there's shorter throws. He can be too conservative, a little timid. When he makes good decisions, they're good. I see it in the pocket. But yeah, he needs more experience. But we need to know soon by next year, or else this rebuild plan, which by the way has gone very well, been very well organized, but it can come crashing down soon if Tua doesn't get figured out. So yeah, I think got really excited that Alabama's in the playoff in the championship, and he started playing like he did. He played great as a college player, but you can get away with things as a college quarterback that you can't get away with as an NFL quarterback, and that has always been the big divide, right? That's why we hear people praise like Clemson, Sean Watson, Trevor Lawrence, or Andrew Luck. Remember Andrew Luck? Because they played in
Who's
more
Andrew
pro
Luck?
style. They played in more pro style college system. I don't know if Tua did or did not, but I'm glad that you saw those weird throws too, because like, what is that? So yeah, we lost bad. Here's the heartbreaking part: we had an 80% chance of making the playoffs before those games started. 80%. There were 5 things. There were 5, well, really 4, but kind of 4.5 variables that affected us getting to the playoffs.
And you only needed one to fall in your favor.
No. And we only needed one to fall in our favor, and none of them did. So here they are. So the Titans one is the one I called a half, because if we end with a tiebreak with them, I don't think it mattered who else was involved. We would have lost, so I'm going to say half because I'm not sure. But here are the big ones. Here are the big 4. Us winning, or the Ravens losing, or the Browns losing, or the Colts losing. None of them happened. We missed the playoffs 80% to 0%, just like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that day was kind of crazy because the Browns and the Colts, or the Browns and the Dolphins and the Ravens all played at 10 o'clock. And it was pretty clear the Ravens were going to win early. You guys were getting blown out, so it was pretty clear you guys were going to lose. And then
but the Colts game and the Browns
the Browns and the Steelers, they kept going back and forth, and then the Browns edged them out, obviously.
Yeah.
And then the Colts, when it came down to like the 10 o'clock games were over and we were looking at the start of the Colts Jags, it was like, all right, I don't feel good about this, because if you had to bet on one game that week, it probably was going to be that one.
Well, that's the irony. That was my eliminator pick, and congratulations to me, kind of. I was perfect in eliminator.
Oh yeah, congrats, man! I totally forgot to mention that, but yeah, congrats! You won eliminator. Well, you had a perfect eliminator season this year.
Yeah. So a perfect eliminator, but my last eliminator game eliminated my team from the
Yeah.
playoffs. But yeah, because that Colt, I mean, dude, I need to watch the part of the Jags game, but just by looking at like where it shows like the score and who has the ball when they have it, it seemed like the Jags had multiple opportunities in the third and fourth quarter, and they just like refused to score, and it was stuck at 2014 for like way too many possessions, and then the Colts came through and scored again. So, um, yeah, that I was like, okay, once they scored again, it was over. No way the Jags gonna score
Yeah.
twice. But yeah, we can move on to the Niners game. Yeah, that's I'm glad 10-6 here is good. I know you and I are going to have more of a season team discussion in more of a future show before the Super Bowl. But happy with 10-6. But like we said, man, that Broncos game killed us. That Broncos game was
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, we called that a while back. All right, so moving on to our second game of the week. This was the Seahawks at Niners game. The Seahawks won 26-23. This was a pride game for the Niners. I felt like they needed to, at a minimum, come out and compete and show that they can play well in the division, even though they put their practice squad team on the field. And congratulations, Seattle. You did beat the 49ers practice squad on Sunday. So congratulations by 3 points. Yeah, man. I mean, what are you going to say? We're a 6-10 team after the greatest injury season in the history of the NFL. We had
Yeah.
a lot of guys that still were able to put up some pretty good numbers. Guys like Fred Warner is on the Pro Bowl. Jeff Wilson Jr., who was a no-name free agent coming into last year, had 10 or 11 touchdowns this season through the air and on the ground together. Um, it just Trent Williams is going to be probably on the All-Pro team for left tackle. So there were some guys that had outstanding seasons, but when you don't have your starting quarterback for all but 2.5 games, when half your entire secondary spends multiple games out, you got a rotation constantly on the O line. You've got your second and
Kittle
third.
was out for a bit.
What was that?
Kittle was out
Yeah,
for a
Kittle
bit.
was out for most of the season, the majority of the season. We were playing, uh, forget the word is escaping me, but we were basically just revolving door with our receivers. Debo barely played. Ayuk missed 4 games. He had a great season, but he was getting healthy. So just on and on. The list goes on and on and on and on. No Nick Bosa, no D Ford. So Joseph, you texted me and said 6-10 is good for what we went through, and I have to kind of let down my pride a little bit and say, yeah, that's actually not terrible considering what we went through. Could I would have liked the 7-9 to beat the Seattle at the end of the season, but that game actually didn't end up mattering as far as the first seed was because the Packers and the Saints both won. And it was clear they were going to win before that game was over. So, just this game was nice to watch until the end of the fourth quarter where Seattle just decided to score 3 touchdowns. Don't really know what happened. It's just one of those ridiculous things that Seattle does. And yeah, I mean, what are you going to say? That Kittle made one of the greatest catches I've ever seen. So that was good to see him back in form. And we'll look forward to next year. We are going to have an episode later this season, probably in the dead weeks between the championship game and the Super Bowl, to talk about the kind of forward-looking what's next for the Dolphins and the 49ers as we kind of anticipate the draft, anticipate the trades and the free agency in the offseason, and what we expect these teams to be able to pull off next year. Okay.
So really quick.
Go ahead.
That. Yeah. Just the Kittle catch. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. Here's what's even crazier. Despite how great of a catch that was, that still may not even be a top 3 catch this year. There were some ridiculous receptions this year. I think this year, talked about it earlier, that this might be one of the best receiver years in recent history. And I think it is. I think this year was loaded. But there have been some insane receptions this year. I might see if I can find a YouTube video that like highlights all of them. and just try to judge actually where Kittle's lands. Right now, I'm thinking top 5, maybe number 3, but there have been some insane receptions.
One of them would be the DeAndre Hopkins Hail Mary in amongst, what was it, 3 Buffalo defenders?
Yeah, that. And then I know that Thielen and CeeDee Lamb in the same game against each other each made ridiculous end zone catches. Yeah, there's been so many third receptions this. So I hope someone puts a compilation together of all those because that'd be great to see.
Yeah, totally. All right, so our second segment of the night is Who Wrecked Face this week, and we've got a lot of names this week, fitting since this is the end of the regular season. I don't know if we're going to do this for the playoffs. I guess we'll see. Maybe we'll just have like a truncated list or something, but we decided to make this sort of our grand finale for the regular season. So Joseph's going to go ahead and start with quarterbacks.
All right. Tom Brady. By the way, so Tom Brady, this brought him to 40 touchdowns this season, and also his 5th season of 35 or more touchdowns.
Wait, man, but I thought he was getting old and frail and he couldn't play football anymore with the Patriots.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Amazing to think what's happening there. So yeah, him and Aaron Rodgers this year both have the record for 5 seasons of 35 or more touchdowns, which is quite incredible if you think about it. This brought him to 40 for his second career season. So he was 26 of 41, 399 yards, 4 touchdowns and 1 interception. And then Kirk Cousins, in a game that was down with that game 37-35, the Lions. So Kirk Cousins, 28 of 40, 405 yards. I think that's a 14.5 yards per completion. And that's impressive. 3 touchdowns, no picks, but also had a rushing touchdown, so 4 total touchdowns. You know what? I'm going to say one more, and I'm going to let you say yours, and I'll save the best 2 for last. So next is the Baltimore rushing. So they had 2 rushing touchdowns. Nothing crazy. They had a 7.5 rushing average. That's pretty good. Ready for this? 404 rushing yards.
Wow.
I remember earlier in the season when it was the Browns-Cowboys, and the Browns had 300 rushing yards. You're like, holy cow. But 404 rushing yards?
I
don't even know.
When was the last time a team broke 400? Not in my recent memory.
I have no idea. I thought when the Browns broke 300, I was like, holy cow. But 400? I have no idea.
Yeah, that's insane.
With a 7.5 average. I'm surprised they only had 2 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah. And I think that, so yeah, Jackson only had like 110 receiving or passing yards. But yeah, they had over 500 yards of total offense, 400 on the ground. That's crazy. Okay, so you want me to go with the receivers and defenders now? And then you'll do your last 2 after that? Okay, so receivers, Marvin Jones, who I commented to Joseph before the show, I think is an underrated gem for the Detroit Lions. He's been there for most of his career. He had a few seasons with Cincinnati. He had 8 catches on 11 targets for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns in that crazy game against the Vikings that Joseph just mentioned. Brandon Cooks for Houston, 11 catches on 16 targets for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then we got some solid defensive performances this week. Not just solid, but they wrecked. Alex Singleton, linebacker for the Eagles, 14 tackles, 1 sack. Tracy Walker, safety for Detroit, 13 tackles, also a sack. Zach Cunningham, we've heard his name a lot for Houston, 13 tackles, 1 forced fumble. And Leonard Williams, putting it together, defensive end for the Giants, 7 tackles, 3 sacks, and 5 QB hits. Folks, that's what we call living in the backfield. So why don't you can wrap up this segment with your last 2.
All right. So, not only there was a lot of wreck face this week, but this was probably the greatest rushing performance in NFL history, independent of what the Ravens did. But once you consider what the Ravens did, this might have been the greatest rushing performance day in NFL history. So, Derrick Henry, and he's shown up on here 5 times now? 6? A bunch.
A lot.
I think him and Josh Allen are tied for number 1. So Derrick Henry, 2 rushing touchdowns, a 7.4 average, 250 rushing yards. Now, it gets crazier than that. That's not even the best rushing performance of the day. Jonathan Taylor, same number of rushing touchdowns, a 1 yard per average per carry higher, 8.4, and 253 rushing yards. So it gets more insane. Let's just go to the stats before we get to the implications everything I discussed, and that was really fun. So, including those 2 times, 250 or more yards has only happened 15 times ever. And 2 of them were in the same year on the same day. And we'll finish what else in a minute. So in the history, only 1 other time has that ever even happened in the same year. 2000 and the year 2000. In the year 2000, Corey Dillon and Mike Anderson both did it. But this was on the same day. They're both in the same division. They're both trying to win the division for the playoff spots. That's just insane. And they were going at the same time. It's like they knew about it and they were competing. Yeah, so just absolutely crazy. 150 plus rushing yards. 2 guys with higher than a 7.4 average. Absolutely insane.
Wow. That's crazy. Lots of good history made this year. That's one thing I love about football, man, is just that there is history made every single year of some kind, even if it's a small thing. There's history made by either a player, a catch, a stat from a game, a team, something every year.
Well, yeah, and how about this? Derrick Henry, in that performance, he also broke 2,000 yards for the 8th time ever in history.
Wow.
Broke 2,000 rushing yards.
So are we going to call him DH2K now?
So that's another crazy thing. The Titans are now the only to have more than 1 2,000-yard rusher.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, because him and Chris Johnson, CK2K.
CJ2K. Okay. So that wraps up our segment number 2 to move on to our segment number 3. And we've got a little bit of a late Christmas gift here, a little bit of late Christmas unwrapping to do, because we have, are you ready for this? We have the official practice squad all-pro team. So Joseph and I went through and debated, thought about, analyzed, checked out stats, all the stuff you need to do to responsibly determine the all-pro team that should be. We don't know who the all-pros are yet. I don't actually know when they'll probably announce in a week or 2. But this is our practice squad official all-pro team selections by offense, defense, and special teams. So, Joseph, do you have the list in front of you? Do you want me to list? We didn't talk about this part. Do you want me to list the offense and then you do defense, or how do you want to do this?
So how about I do offense only because I did not make all of the changes to defense on my end.
Okay, that's fine. You can do offense and then I'll do defense.
All right. And then I'll do the first, which special team.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So, quarterback, fight that would warrant an MVP and an All-Pro the last 10 years by Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, heck, maybe even Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. My goodness. We're going to talk about, because our next segment is that one, right?
Yes.
So yeah, Aaron Rodgers gets it. My goodness, what a year. If he had another 400, 500 yard passing yards, I would put this up in like a top 5 season of all time. I still think it's top 15. And I may have to reevaluate because that was in our first season, the top 10 quarterbacks. So I may have to reevaluate. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers deserves it. Running back. Now I'm a little sad. There was some sad news. Dalvin Cook's father passed away on game day, and Dalvin Cook did not play. If Dalvin Cook had put up a good game, I think there was a running for it. His total yards would have been very similar to Henry's, both over 2,000. And I think Cook had more total touchdowns. Alvin Kamara also was good, but Derrick Henry gets it. Not blown away like Aaron Rodgers, but Derrick Henry is definitely the choice, and Cook didn't play. So Derrick Henry, congrats to you. Great running. I'm going to skip receivers at the minute. Let's go to offensive line. Jeremy did pick these because he looked at some PFF results.
Oh, real quick, I'm sorry. Before you read those off, I did end up removing one of the guards and picking a center.
Was it Pouncey? One of the Pouncey brothers?
No, it was Corey Linsley.
He's for the Saints?
Packers.
Okay. Oh, so the Packers.
Yeah, the Packers had two O linemen.
All right, so say his name again.
Corey Linsley, the center.
All right, he's the center. The guards were Wyatt Teller. Which one did you remove?
I don't remember the name.
Okay, I'll just say all of them then. So originally Jeremy had 3 guards, took one of them out, put a center in. Which, guys, that's not surprising, because if you go to Pro NFL reference website, which is a great website except for this thing, and you look at last year, and last year only 1 tackle an All-Pro position. That makes no sense.
Well, you know, all those football teams out there that have 4 offensive linemen.
So yeah, and I encourage you to look into last year's, and you'll find some weird anomalies. Also, like, we're gonna call defenders wide receivers. Anyways, get there for later. So Wyatt Teller, Zach Martin. Wyatt Teller for Cleveland, Zach Martin from Dallas, Ali Marpet, because it looks like French, from Tampa Bay, and Corey Linsley from the Packers as a center. For the tackles, we have the one and only Trent Williams for the Niners, and then I'm gonna butcher this, David Bakhtiari from Green Bay. So 2 Packers on the offensive line. Tight end, this one's obvious. Though Aaron Waller had one heck of a season for the Raiders, gonna be a stud. Travis Kelce had like all-time tight end season. I think this solidified his Hall of Fame for me. Definitely wasn't opposed to it, but he was one of the better receivers of the entire year, and he put up one of the best, if not the best, tight end year of all time. So congrats to Kelce. All right, here's the fun one. Wide receivers. 2 obvious choices where Jeremy and I just agreed off the bat. Davante Adams and Stephon Diggs. Davante Adams missed at least 2 games this year, and he just monster numbers. 115 receptions, over 1,300 yards. I think he had 17 touchdowns. Watch him, folks. When he catches the ball, the moves he makes, him and Rodgers, if they keep playing for a few more years, could be one of the most special duos. Stephon Diggs, that's another great duo with him and Josh Allen. Great catches, great hands, plays. Then here's where it got tough. Who is third? So there were 3 candidates that Jeremy and I agreed were in the running for this last position: Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf. That's tough, you know. Look at the quarterbacks that they have. Metcalf and Hill have the better quarterbacks. Murray slumped towards the end, had an injury, but DeAndre Hopkins had one heck of a year. Great catches. Obviously, that famed one against the Bills. Solid numbers, reliable, smart player. Metcalf, right? A great rookie season. One of the best rookie wide receiver years of all time, which is crazy because Justin Jefferson has the same claim. So great rookie receiver class this year. Metcalf, a deep threat, fast, almost like a Calvin Johnson kind of player. Him and Russell Wilson, sadly, I know we don't want to say this, but we have to admit that they could be a very dangerous duo for the next several years.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Yeah. And then Tyreek Hill had 17 receiving touchdowns. He had, I think, 2 rushing touchdowns, about 1,400 total yards, explosive, a very high yards per catch. We ended up going with Tyreek Hill. Played one less game than the other guys, had comparable, if not better, stats in areas, and we just know how explosive he is. Just on really, and in fact, I think we even had a commentator say the darndest things about this last year. Tyreek Hill. Someone on some game was like, Tyreek Hill basically is, any play he can explode for a touchdown. Well, the fact is that kind of actually, if it's not a touchdown, Tyreek Hill on any play is dangerous. That was our option. So yeah, congratulations to our honorable mentions, Hopkins and Metcalf, but Tyreek Hill was our third option. All right, go away with the defense.
All right, so defense, starting with defensive end, we had the way that Joseph and I decided to handle the defense was we did we kind of went with a 3-4 and decided that the fourth linebacker would be a floating pick, either a really good linebacker or a really good pure defensive lineman, pretty much whichever was better. So we went with 2 pure defensive ends, 1 pure tackle, and then we had 3 pure linebackers and then a floating pick. So for our defensive ends, we have Trey Hendrickson from the Saints and Myles Garrett. Myles, I was suspended last year, Garrett. And let me just pull up the stats real quick, just so I want to do them the respect of quoting them and having these in front of me. So Trey Hendrickson had 13.5 sacks. Not a whole lot of tackles, but he was tied for second in sacks overall. It was the highest defensive end. And then the second highest defensive end in sacks was Myles Garrett with 12. And then for defensive tackle, none other than the perpetual man that is always part of the irrationally part of the MVP discussion, Aaron Donald, put up 13.5 sacks this year as a tackle. He had 4 forced fumbles, 45 total tackles. So he was just 20 tackles for loss. So he had a great season this year. The best amongst defensive tackles. And then for linebacker, Joseph and I immediately agreed on 2 of them. The first being Devin White from Tampa Bay, who I think he's a second year.
Yeah, dude. And what a great year he had.
Yeah, he's phenomenal. One of the reasons the Bucks are in the playoffs for sure is because of him. He had 140 tackles. And I'm actually going to swap my stat sheet over to the tackle leaders to make it a little bit easier to read. So Devin White had 140 total tackles. He had 9 sacks, which is
that led 9 backers.
Yeah, which is like a decent year for a defensive end. But he had 140 tackles, 9 sacks, 4 passes defended, and a forced fumble. He was all over the field, phenomenal linebacker. In my opinion, kind of the clear number 1. Then we had Joe Schobert, the one bright spot for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year.
Literally, like they had 1 win and 1 bright spot, and it was
him. And he had 141 tackles, so 1 more tackle, a lot less sacks. He had 2.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 4 passes defended. He did have 3 interceptions though, and 2 forced fumbles. So he was a turnover machine this year. Really bright spot for that guy. And the Jags should keep him. I think he's a good piece to keep as they hopefully start rebuilding next year. I don't know when the Jags what they're doing, if they think they're rebuilding or not. I don't know, or if they just decide they want to be at the bottom of the barrel forever.
They're so bad that I don't think they're even able to be in rebuilding mode. They're in stop digging mode.
Yeah. There you go. That's the new term for where they're at. Okay, and then the next, so for the final linebacker pick, we had to discuss this a little bit, but we ended up landing on Roquan Smith, who had a phenomenal year with the Chicago Bears this season. He had 139 tackles, 4 sacks, 18 tackles for loss, which actually ties for first with Devin White. 2 interceptions, and a forced fumble. So he was really solid for them. My guess is without him, the Bears wouldn't be in the playoffs. So congrats to him. And then I say congrats as if like our selection means that they're actually on the Pro Bowl, which of course it does.
Yeah.
So our honorable mentions were Zach Cunningham, who led the league in total tackles, and Blake Martinez for the Zach Cunningham with Houston, who you remember we mentioned many times on Wrecked Face, and Blake Martinez for the New York Giants, who had 151 tackles, 3 sacks, an interception, 2 forced fumbles. Competition for Roquan Smith, but we felt like Roquan just edged them out.
I want to reiterate that like those honorable mentions are so close.
Oh
like,
yeah,
those 5
razor
I think
thin.
Clearly the best 5.
Yeah, razor thin. So if there were alternates for the team, which I think they usually do Pro Bowl alternates, they probably would both be on there. The floating pick that was one of the easiest picks of this entire list was TJ Watt for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had just a phenomenal season. So listen to this stat line. So 53 total tackles. Okay, all right. 15 sacks, 26 tackles for loss.
Which I think is third all time, by the way.
Both of which led the league this season. Plus 7 passes defended, which was more than any other linebacker or defensive end. An interception and 2 forced fumbles. He did everything.
Yeah, dude. Him and his brother. Like TJ, 2 more years of this, and TJ's a Hall of Famer. Obviously JJ is, but TJ could be a Hall of Famer too. Isn't that crazy? 2 Hall of Fame like defenders like that.
Is he? Let's see.
This is his 3rd season, I think.
This is his 4th season. His 4th season. So yeah, he came in the league in 2000.
What's the biggest thing we learned about the Steelers yesterday?
Got those dumb pop-ups on ESPN.
Well, Jay, we learned that the Steelers might have a
you're gonna hear a little. You're gonna hear a little bit of that audio on our stream, but if you rewatch on YouTube. But yeah, this is his 4th season.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm on Pro Reference right now. So this is his 4th season. He already has. This is his 3rd Pro Bowl, and we know they're gonna give him the All Pro this year. So he's gonna have 3 Pro Bowls, 2 All Pros in his first 4 years. Last year he had a monster. And he ended up with, I think, so his brother has the 2 top positions, tackles for loss of all time. It's pretty disgusting, actually. But I think TJ Watt put up one of the top, besides JJ, put up one of the all-time tackles for loss.
Wow. Okay. Well, like brother, as they say. Okay, and then for the final grouping we had for defense is the defensive backs. Joseph and I decided to kind of approach this as just defensive backs. We weren't going to try to pick a specific number of corners or a specific number of safeties. We ended up with three corners and a safety, one pure safety, who I guess didn't really. I think he was with the Jets, but not so much with the Seahawks. But I'll get to that in a second. So the easiest, another one of the easiest picks this season, as far as Pro Bowl or All Pro is concerned, is Xavier Howard, Joseph's buddy with the Miami Dolphins. He had 10 interceptions this season.
The most since 2007.
Really? Okay, I did not know that. That's epic. 20 passes defended and a forced fumble. So he was just incredible. Easy pick for All Pro. Then we've got J.C. Jackson, one of the few bright spots for the Patriots this season. He had 9 interceptions and 14 passes defended. And then Jamal Adams, the safety for the Seattle Seahawks, holds the record for, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but he holds the record for the most sacks by, is it a safety or just a defensive back period?
I think it's a defensive back.
Okay, period. At 9.5 this season. He had a lot of tackles for loss. I don't have the exact number in front of me.
14.
14 tackles for loss. Thank you.
Which is solid for even a linebacker.
Yeah, and that's kind of more how he played this year. He played almost more like a outside linebacker. But nonetheless, he is a safety, and so he did do some coverage. And he makes it on our list for defensive backs. And then lastly, Jair Alexander, who is the highest PFF rated corner in the NFL this season for the Green Bay Packers. Didn't have a lighted up stat sheet, but then again, Joseph and I have talked about this on the show before. The stat sheet does not tell the whole story when it comes to defensive backs and some other positions. And so we wanted to make sure we had a holistic metric for determining who would make it on this list, and Jair Alexander, being the highest rated defensive back, we felt deserved to be on the list. So team's general player, which I know they do for the all-pro list typically, but we did do a kicker and a punter, and I'll let Joseph announce the kicker.
Yeah, so first honorable mention is, okay, I'm sorry, man, Younghoe Koo.
It's either Younghoe or Younghoe Koo.
Okay, yeah, Younghoe Koo for Atlanta. Yeah, so by the way, preface, these two kickers, one, they were clearly the two best kickers. Two, their stats are so close. They're so close. I almost want to give them to both of them, but we did have to edge out. We only can have one kicker. So Younghoe Koo, amazing year. But we went with Jason Sanders for Miami. Like I said, stats were almost identical. I think he was a little more clutch and prolific with 50-plus yard field goals. And he had some clutch, long game-winning field goals. I know there was at least one that was a 50-plus yard game-winning field goal. And yeah, he was clutch when we needed him to be. So Jason Sanders, great job. And he honestly, we might be contributed at least 2 wins just to.
Yeah, for sure. And then lastly, the punter. This one was close between a couple of people, but we agreed that the greatest punter this year was the Seahawks' Michael Dickson. Okay, so that is our All-Pro, the official practice squad All-Pro team of 2020. So our second special segment, we have 3 special segments for you tonight. The second special segment is our final MVP discussion / MVP selection for 2020. And it's Aaron Rodgers, so we can now move on to our third segment of the night. No, just kidding. So it very obviously, well, not, I shouldn't say very obviously, but it's Aaron Rodgers. Okay. Aaron Rodgers is the MVP this year. And I think our pick is going to align with the league's pick. I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers.
I think it was like, it's already at like no worse, like an 80-20 Aaron Rodgers after the 15th game, but after the 16th, especially with Mahomes not playing 100%, it was just, but yeah, listen to the stat line. So he completed 70.7% of his passes. He had 41 yard off, so 4,300 passing yards, 48 touchdowns, which I think is tied for third all time, and only 5 interceptions. 5 interceptions, and a 121.5 passer rating, which I think is second all time behind his record of 122-ish that he set 2011. But it doesn't end there. Yeah, he only had 149 rushing yards. But he had 3 more rushing touchdowns. So he had 51 total touchdowns. Yeah, so Aaron Rodgers, you're going to get it. Congratulations. You're going to get your third MVP, which is insane. And you may even get your second Super Bowl win. So the next part of the segment, this is where we want to have some fun. So question is, almost a 2-part. Now you said there's a third special segment. What's the third one?
We're going to talk about the Pro Bowl selections.
No, you mean the All-Pro?
No, the Pro Bowl, like the actual Pro Bowl, like not our Pro Bowl, the actual Pro Bowl.
Oh, we were? I honestly had no idea we were doing that.
Well, it's a surprise from one co-host to the next.
All right. Well, I had no preparation.
There's no preparation required. It's just I wanted to go through and read off the Pro Bowl picks.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. All right. Well, okay. So next part of this segment, too, it's kind of a two-parter. So we want to discuss who is the quarterback or quarterbacks that are in running for second. A pretty heated competition for who's in second. And then we want to discuss some of the criteria and presuppositions that go into the MVP discussion. So first, let's start with our two. And Jeremy, if you want to, once I list them, I'll have you take first pick. I want you to kind of make the argument for one, and I'll make the argument for the other. And we'll do this kind of, this is live, impromptu. So the two quarterbacks competing, Patrick
and
Mahomes
Aaron Donald,
Josh Allen. He was so good that he played backup quarterback.
Yes.
So Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. Who would you like to pick to make the argument for of who deserves second?
Let me just put their stats in front of me so I can quote them without causing a delay here. So okay, so let's see.
By the way, while you're doing that, the dead air time, I'll say this. This is all impromptu. We knew that we were going to discuss this, but what I just said about us picking and kind of making an argument for each case, that is completely just came to my mind, and this is all
Joseph's just getting back at me because he didn't realize we had a third special segment today. So okay, I will make the case for Josh Allen. How about that?
All right, that works perfectly. I will start Patrick Mahomes. So Patrick Mahomes played in 15 games. Okay, 15 games. He had a 2/3 or 66% completion percentage. He had 4,740 passing yards, 38 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. But he also had some rushing stats, right? So he had 308 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. So that is just over 5,000 total yards with 40 total touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. So here's the argument, right? Best team in the league, 14-1. Through the games, probably 12, 13, 14, and 15, he was either the number 1 or considered the number 2. In the one game that they lost against the Raiders, he had a decent game. His completion percentage was low, but he had 340 total yards, 3 total touchdowns, and 1 pick. He played some big games. He had a good game, a decent game against the Saints, right? He had a great game against the Bucs at Tampa Bay against Tom Brady, over 75% completion, 462 passing yards, thanks to Tyreek Hill, 3 touchdowns, no picks, right? He whomped on the Panthers, right? They beat the Buffalo Bills, had a high completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, no picks, beat the Patriots, whomped on the Ravens, 74%, almost 400 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Oh, and he did pretty decent against the Houston Texans in game 1 as well. So even though he didn't play the last game, he had some big games, only had 1 loss. The loss wasn't really it was his fault because he didn't give up 40 points against the Raiders. And they're the best league. Played big when they need him to. And yeah, we've seen how clutch he can be. We know how crazy of passes and creativity he has. And when a big play was needed, he was there. That's my argument.
And my argument is to concede to you because Josh Allen is illegal underage. So therefore Patrick Mahomes is the second place MVP. No. So as you were going through his stats, I realized that any argument I could make about Josh Allen, I feel like kind of disintegrates, at least as you compare stats to stats. I think overall, if you compare just the basics, so total yards, which includes passing and rushing, total touchdowns, interceptions, fumbles, and completion percentage, Patrick Mahomes wins in all those except completion percentage.
No. Touchdowns. Josh Allen beats him in touchdowns. 7.
5.
5.
By
He had
5. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. By 5.
But 4 more picks, 4 fumbles.
Right. And we just have to assume that Patrick Mahomes would have thrown 6 touchdowns in that last game if he had played.
That is true. Josh Allen did play one more game, and it was really
good.
Yeah,
it was really good. He threw. Let's see. He threw for 3 touchdowns and a pick against the Dolphins, and did not play the whole game. So I think the main, instead of going through like a whole line comparison, I think the main argument to be made about Josh Allen, I think, is maybe just that is probably the touchdowns and then maybe the clutchness. Like Josh Allen had multiple really epic comeback wins. I'm thinking of the game against the Rams in week 3 that they came back and won 35-32. And I think they came down from the largest deficit or tied for the largest deficit in a regular season game ever.
It was crazy.
He had lots of like 1-score wins. And yes, he did lose the head-to-head matchup with the Chiefs, and he had actually a pretty bad game that day. 14 for 27, 122 yards, 51.9% completion, 2 touchdowns and a pick. So nothing to write home about there. But he dominated a lot of teams and put up a lot of great games. He had, let's see, 4 passing touchdown games. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like, I mean, to be honest, if we were doing a debate round or something, I probably would have tried to really beat you with my Josh Allen stats. But I think at the end of the day, I think Patrick Mahomes probably edges him out just a little bit. I don't think the 5 touchdowns are enough to put him over. Now, I will say that Patrick Mahomes does benefit from an O-line that cheats, and Josh Allen has, I think, slightly worse weapons. So you do have to factor that in. Patrick Mahomes has, like, pound for pound, maybe the best weapons in the NFL.
That would be a great
in the top 3, probably.
Top 3 easily. How's it?
Yeah. So, you do have to factor that in as well. So maybe that would be one argument for Allen. So if you sum it up, it would be worse weapons, but still 5 more touchdowns.
But one more game.
He had, well, that's against him, I guess. He had better rushing stats. I thought was as or maybe a little more clutch than Mahomes was this year. And did all of this while he was underage. So so
that's the real stat.
That's my case for Josh Allen.
That's pretty good. That it's funny because I actually wanted to make the case for Josh Allen because I thought he was a bit better. But to be honest, I think it is Mahomes too. So I guess how that works out. Yeah, I mean, but we can both agree that they're both in the top 3. Though.
Oh yeah, they're yeah. I think the case for Russell Wilson kind of evaporated. I think he might be 4th.
Yeah, but he's like a more distant 4th. So yeah, all right, well, that was fun. And then this next part of this is how to. I touched upon it, right? This one game thing. How would you try to consider if you were on the MVP? Which honestly, I wish we were, because I'm sure we would do a better job than at least 80% of those who are on. But we'll say that for later. You're looking at the stats, yes. Looking at the games. How do you try to weigh team performance, the wins and the losses, and how they played in those games overall, maybe, or their defense, and how many games they played, right? Because I mean, think about like Aaron Rodgers, that historic 2011 season. He already has a top 3, if not top 2, and even debatable number 1 season of all time, and he did not play the last game of the season. That's ridiculous. But Mahomes did not need to play. And there's a possibility, depending on that last game, and it mattered, right? Does the playoff matter? Does the fact that if Mahomes played that last game and it didn't really matter, would that be considered? So I'm asking you, yeah, how would you consider the variables of team wins, team losses, the defense, and how many games they play, and then lastly, if the last few games have playoff implications, would you and how would you consider those things if you were on the MVP?
I think that you have to. I think you can't punish someone if they don't play in that specific situation, meaning resting because their seed is locked. So I think you have to consider averages. You have to wait. You do need to take into account the total stats, because at the same time you also can't punish the guy that played the 16th game and put up good numbers. So
next, maybe he needed to play.
Right. So I think that's where you maybe you say, okay, we know they're really close, so therefore we're going to weigh the averages a little bit heavier and look at some of the past performances and some of the X factors, like we talked about, worse weapons, clutch wins, stuff like that. Playing with teammates with injuries, etc. How good the O-line is, how many times they were sacked, etc. Stuff like that. I think that needs to start factoring in when you have a race that is as close as this one. And I think you maybe just you weigh some of the stats like total touchdowns and total yards a little bit lower.
Okay. I like it. Good stuff. I would concur with that. All right. Bring us to our third segment then.
Okay. So this is just a quick overview of the Pro Bowl selections for this year. And the lists are a little long, so I'm going to rip through these real fast. So we've got for the 2021, technically, AFC Pro Bowl roster. And again, this is a game that will not be played because of COVID. But these were the selections nonetheless. 3 quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Deshaun Watson. 3 running backs, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs. By the way, they put an asterisk next to the starter, and then there's a backup or alternate player. So I'll just say asterisk after the name, or star after the name for the person that's the starter. So Patrick Mahomes star, Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson, Derrick Henry star, Nick Chubb, Josh Jacobs, Tyreek Hill star, Stephon Diggs star, Keenan Allen, AJ Brown. For tight ends, Travis Kelce is a starter, Darren Waller with the Raiders. I didn't even know who that was, so congratulations to him for making it. Fullback Patrick Ricard, 3 tackles, Laramie Tunsil star for the Texans, Eric Fisher star, and then Orlando Brown. Guards, there's 3, Quentin Nelson, Joel Bitonio, and then alternate David DeCastro. Centers, Marquise Pouncey, and then alternate Ryan Kelly. Defensive ends, Myles Garrett, Joey Bosa, and alternate Frank Clark. Defensive tackles, Chris Jones, Cameron Hayward, and alternate Calais Campbell. Outside linebackers, TJ Watt, Bradley Chubb, and alternate Matt Judon. Inside linebacker, Darius Leonard, alternate Tremaine Edmonds. Cornerbacks, Xavier Howard, Tre'Davious White, alternates Marlon Humphrey and Stephon Gilmore. Free safety, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and alternate Justin Simmons. Strong safety, Tyrann Mathieu. Long snapper, Morgan Cox. Punter, Jake Bailey. Kicker, Justin Tucker. I don't know what RS is. Andre Roberts. And special teams, is that the holder maybe? I don't know. Special teams, Matthew Slater for the Patriots. All right. For the NFC, quarterbacks, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Kyler Murray. Running backs, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones. Wide receivers, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson. Tight ends, TJ Hawkinson, Evan Ingram. Fullback, Kyle Juszczyk, 49er. Tackle, David Bakhtiari, Trent Williams, 49ers. Terran Armstead. Guards, Brandon Scherf, Elgton Jenkins, and Andrus Peat. Center, Jason Kelsey, Frank Ragnow. Defensive ends, Cameron Jordan, Brandon Graham, Chase Young. Defensive tackle, Aaron Donald, Fletcher Cox, Grady Jarrett. Outside linebacker, Khalil Mack, Za'Darius Smith, Jason Pierre-Paul. Inside linebacker, Bobby Wagner, Fred Warner, another 49er. Cornerback, Jalen Ramsey, Jair Alexander, Marshawn Lattimore, James Bradbury. Free safety, Quandre Diggs. Strong safeties, Buda Baker and Jamal Adams. Long snapper, Tyler Ott. Punter, Jack Fox. Kicker, Young Ho Koo. RS, Cordarrelle that must be the returner, I guess. Cordarrelle Patterson, yeah. And then the special teams selection is Nick Bellore.
So I wouldn't thank you, by the way, for doing that. I wouldn't mind one day, maybe for when that dead week, when the Pro Bowl would be, but it's not, going through, maybe criticizing, analyzing and how our all-pro selections differ, because I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's impossible to be an all-pro and not a Pro Bowler afterwards, and that'd be kind of weird. I don't know if that's possible or not, but there's some names that we listed that aren't on here, and I have a feeling that there's some snubs.
Yeah, it's absolutely possible to not be, but you should never be, because the all-pro is a more restrictive list.
Yeah, but we should go through and look at some of the snubs, criticize, and discuss and see how our list compares, not just to their all-pro, but why they weren't on the Pro Bowl. Because I actually do, really quick, I'll say this once we can move on. Khalil Mack is great, but I think there was some. Oh, wait, no, yeah, Khalil Mack. I think there was a little bit of bias in him, possibly. So, the whole repetition, like, oh yeah, he's been in it for so many years, he's definitely the guy. So, yeah, I'd like to criticize this at some point. In a few weeks.
Yeah, that would be fun. I'm sure there's always going to be snubs, and that's why we provide you with our practice squad all pro list, so that you know the official, true, deserved picks of 2020 season. All right, so moving on to our fourth segment, commentators say the darndest things. I don't have a quote per se, but I do, from the Seahawks 49ers game, I do have a list of 3 players that don't exist yet still somehow played on Sunday. DJ Metcalf, Kevin Bourne, and Deion Jones. Congratulations for your great game on Sunday. DK Metcalf, Kendrick Bourne, and DJ Jones, on the other hand, all had fine games. So congratulations to them too. Okay. The whoever was the announcer, I didn't pick up his name, but he has done this. He does this every game where there's like 3 or 4 names that he just straight up doesn't know. And he just makes up names. It's great. So our 5th and final segment of our final regular season episode of this season is our prediction segment. So for the tricky picks, I ended this last week 4-3. Joseph was 3-4, which means I actually ended the season right at 500, 27-27. Joseph was 28-26, so he beat me by 1. There are no tricky picks for this week. Is that correct, Joseph? Okay. And we may not do it for the playoffs. We haven't decided yet, but you'll know next week. Our final regular season prediction record this last week was I was 12-4, Joseph was 8-8. So Joseph's conniving to attempt to, take games on me by picking weird picks, like picking the Jets over the Patriots, did not work. And I picked up 4 games. So I ended up 170, 84-1 on the regular season, which was 66.9%, which is actually 4.9% better than my previous best.
that our record? Is that our?
That is our practice squad record. Our new practice squad record,
right.
66.9%. Thank you. And you were 161, 93, and 1, which is 63.4%, which is actually only half a point worse than your best and the third best percentage of the practice squad. So overall, we both had pretty good years this year. Okay.
I feel like the goal is 65% each year, but
yeah, I agree. I kind of rounded up to 2/3, so 66.6%. Like if you get 2/3 of the games right each week, that's what 11 and a half games. Yeah, if you go 11 and 5, it doesn't quite add up, but about that. Okay, so let's go over our predictions. So we only have 6 games because we're now in the wild card week. So our wild card week predictions. Let's start with the Saturday games. So why don't I'll just do it this way. I'll do my picks first for the Saturday games, and then you'll do your picks first for the Sunday games. Does that work? Okay. So Saturday is the number 7 seed Colts at the number 2 seed Bills. I'm going Bills.
Bills as well.
Okay. The number 6 Rams against the number 3 Seahawks. I'm going Seahawks.
Same.
And the number 5 Bucks against the number 4 football team. I'm going Bucks.
Same.
Okay.
All right. I actually don't know the full seeding Sunday. So how about you list the seeding for me, and then I'll just say the game. I don't.
Sure. Yeah. So the first game is 5 and 4. Is that how you want?
All right. So yeah, that's fine. Go and do that. So yeah. So the 5 seed Baltimore Ravens against the 4 seed Tennessee Titans. I'm going Baltimore.
Same. And then 7 and 2.
Okay. So the 7 seed Bears against the seed Saints. I'm going Saints.
Same. And 6 and 3.
And then the 6 seed Browns against the 3 seed Steelers. I'm going Steelers.
Same.
All right. Exactly the same. I thought I'd have actually picked Tennessee.
I was considering it, but I decided that I don't think there's going to be a repeat of last season. Okay, so what we decided to do for the game of the week is we're going to do the best game of Saturday and the best game of Sunday. So we don't know what those are going to be yet. So if you want to play it safe, just watch all the games with us, and then you'll be ready to talk about it with us next Tuesday. So we'll select those after the fact, and then we'll discuss them next week.
So I would recommend, I think there's a least game of the week here, and I'm not going to watch until I might do highlights, but Bucks, Redskins, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably the least interesting game. I would agree with that, yeah.
Who cares?
And if Brady doesn't dominate, then something's wrong. Okay, so that is a wrap for our episode tonight. If you enjoyed tonight's episode or any of our past episodes, please like, share, and subscribe here on YouTube, as those are free ways for you to support our show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at The Practice Squad and at Neuralizer_. Just as a reminder, if you've missed past episodes, you can watch or listen to them right here on my YouTube channel. The show is online immediately after we go live, so if you've missed any of our foolish banter, you can always rewind and start from the beginning. As always, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.